So as you guys know, my name's Alec Torelli. Thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to be here. And I guess the reason I was asking that question about college is what I sort of wanted to lead with, and I think, I don't know if, I remember being in your guys' spot. I know I seem like probably really old to you at 30, but it wasn't long ago that I was in high school, and I remember like all the conversations I would have with people around me, like friends or certainly the people that were older than me, like family and adults. Like it seemed like everyone I met, the first thing they would ask is like, where are you gonna go to school? What are you gonna study? What's your major gonna be? Is it like that for you guys? Yeah, and so I guess, I just want to take a step back and say like, I understand how that pressure could be like pretty tough. And I'm 30, and if you ask me what I'm gonna do in 5 months, like I have absolutely no idea. So I'm not saying that as a license to be like apathetic or not to have a plan for your future or to just like throw your life in the gutter and do something stupid. But at the same time, I believe that you don't have to have every single thing figured out in your life at 17 or 18. And a lot of the times the people that are applying pressure to do that have their own thing going on and they just take it out on the younger generation. So I feel like I empathize with where you're at, and I think it's a little bit tough. It's a little bit unfair, the pressure that society puts on you guys. And even as adults, like I'm sitting here telling you, like we don't have it all figured out, you know. So I also think, I guess, lastly, it also doesn't really make sense to have all the answers, because having a life where you know what you're going to do from 20 to 70 sounds pretty friggin' boring to me. So there's some sort of excitement in having a plan for what you're going to do, but at the same time not have to have every single facet of your life figured out. But anyway, there's 3 things I wanted to share with you today, and one of them is just, you guys are playing a lot of poker. I'd like to share a little bit about how poker works in terms of like just the basic decisions that you make in poker, and how those things also sort of relate to decisions that you can make away from the table as well. So you guys know that when you play Texas Hold'em, you get 2 cards. And you have a lot of choice as to what you do with these 2 cards. You can play or you can pass. And you really have a lot of flexibility. In other words, there's not really a lot of pressure to play any one specific hand. You can sort of just sit around and fold until you get a hand that you like. And one of the beautiful things about poker is that if you wait long enough, everybody has the same probability of getting 2 aces or 2 kings or 2 queens, right? Like, it's sort of like flipping a coin, heads or tails. Like in any one coin flip, it might be heads or tails or tails. But if you extrapolate this long enough, it's going to be heads and tails 50-50. So all of us, at the end of our lives, at the end of our poker careers, are going to get the same amount of aces and the same amount of deuce 7 offsuit. And so you have a lot of choice over the hands that you play. And I think that's a really good metaphor for making decisions that I've personally taken away from the felt as well. And it's like being patient is just important, because you guys are making decisions now that are going to influence the next year or 2 years or 10 years or whatever of your life, and you don't have to play every single hand that comes your way. You don't have to feel pressure that every hand's got to be played. You could wait around for the good ones and really sort of choose to play the game how you like to play it. And I know that all of you guys probably have different poker playing styles. Some of you guys are really tight. Some of you guys only wait for good hands. Some of you guys like to get in there and gamble and play a little bit more hands, see the next couple cards. And those sorts of things are just tendencies of you guys that help you determine like your playing style. And I think the same is really true in the decisions you make away from the felt. But one thing is different about poker and the hands that you're dealt and our lives in general. And that's that while you can choose the hands that you play at the table, like you can wait around, and the strategy is correct to wait around for like aces and kings and your really good hands. You guys were probably taught that by Chris. Like, hang around and wait for good probability hands and bet strong when you have those. But I think that one thing's really important to kind of have as a perspective. I guess if there's one thing that you guys leave with, it's to take this perspective to the heart, because I believe doing that really changes one's outlook on the world. And it's that like in our life, we don't get to choose the hand that we're dealt. We can only really focus on how we play it. And so we're sitting here today. You guys are born in we weren't born in 2017, but it is 2017, and you're in the Upper West Side of New York City, and this is something that isn't something that you necessarily chose. This is just the hand that you were dealt. And so this is important to keep in mind as a perspective, because I think it's easy in our culture in the Western world to only compare our current situation to the people around us. And I think that makes us lack a lot of perspective. Like, I know when I grew up in Orange County, California, which is a very affluent area of the US, of the world. But like, it didn't really register to me that I was dealt a very premium hand in life. Like, I was dealt aces, maybe I was dealt kings, maybe I was dealt queens. It doesn't really matter because all those hands are winning hands. But it didn't really register to me that I was dealt such a good hand just because everyone else around me was in either a little bit worse of a spot, the same spot, or a little bit better of a spot, and I was just kind of fitting into my reality. But it's only when I started traveling, mainly for poker, when I was 18, I dropped out of college and I started traveling the world to play poker, and I've been lucky to go over to over 40 countries. And it wasn't until I sort of had a bigger perspective on like seeing the way that people lived in different parts of the world that I realized, holy shit, like everybody that comes from the Western world just has a winning hand. And like, I guess the perspective I'd like everyone to just really understand deeply is that you guys have an absolutely amazing winning hand. And it might be like hard to see somewhere in New York City where like that apartment is worth like $1.7 million. And it's like, it seems insane, right? That like there's just so much wealth in the middle of Manhattan, or like so much opportunity and so much everything. But we're like comparing ourselves in the Western world to having something like pocket tens versus pocket aces. But all these hands are gonna win. Like, everybody has an incredible amount of opportunity. And this is just something that was just, I didn't gather until I started traveling. So I wanted to bring back an experience that I had this spring going to Cambodia. And this is where I really felt like this point was driven home for me, where I got to see that there are people in the world that were actually dealt like straight up 7-deuce offsuit, and those people don't live in the reality that we were born. So this is the way that, a little bit of backstory. I was at, we were in Cambodia, I was there with my wife, and we've always wanted to go to Siem Reap. It's supposed to be an amazing place. And we were staying at the Hyatt, and we wanted to take a cooking class. And the chef at the hotel, instead of doing like a traditional cooking class where we stay at the hotel, he takes us out to the local village. And so instead of cooking at the hotel and like just kind of being disconnected from the culture that you live in, because the Hyatt is a beautiful hotel and you're in the middle of the third world, so there's this extremely stark contrast between where you're staying in this beautiful oasis and how the people actually live. He wanted to help the people understand the way that the life actually works in Cambodia. So he took us out to the place where the locals barter and shop and how they actually live, and we took a cooking class with them. The thing is that we couldn't eat the food that they made because it's toxic and contaminated, and you could get sick and be in the hospital from it because our bodies can't handle their sort of food. But we got to go out and see how everybody made their food. So that's how we got on this sort of field trip, so to speak. But check this out. This is where the people drink water. This is the average situation in Cambodia. So this is iron.
Yes, and then the sand is drained and become a clear water. Wow. The drained iron in the sand.
So this is like one man's job for the day to filter the water. This is where they live. This is one of the ladies in the village.
Pick up my shoe. Here we go. Oh, no way. This is unreal.
These are huts made out of bamboo. This is a village of people that are your guys' age. So they have to sit on this little teeter-totter and work in harmony to pound the rice. Yeah, and this woman made 100 kilos of rice in a single day. It's like 60 pounds. So this is the rice. Unfortunately, we couldn't try it, but so this is like the last stage where I got to work the rice. And you sort of have to move it around this wheel to get it to turn into water, and it's like a 10-step process. But the whole family actually works together to make this happen. So this is a family of, I don't know, 10 people would be like your grandmas and your grandparents and your uncles and your brothers and sisters. And like, I guess the perspective I want people to have is that these people were dealt a different hand. And like, this is not something that they could choose. And so we're here in the middle of Manhattan, and most of what we have in life is just straight luck. And so people are dealt like aces and kings and queens, but no matter what hands that we have here, it really doesn't matter, because all our hands have the perspective to win. I'm a big numbers guy, so I actually wrote down some things that are representative of the real world that most these guys live in. And I think a lot of people, like at the poker table, maybe you guys have noticed this already, there's a tendency to begrudge your luck. So like, let's say you get it all in with a great hand and you have ace king and someone has queens, and then people are noticing that they lose these hands when they're all in, and it's frustrating. But there's a lot of other things that we could lose in life that have greater consequences than what could happen at the poker table. So these people live without electricity. This is 25% of the world. So this is like one in four, but half the world which these guys fall into live on this amount, $250 a day, and 80% is at $10 a day. So these are hands that people are dealt which have much greater consequences than anything that we could ever have in the Western world. So what we have in poker is a term called a free roll, which basically means that you can only win and you can't lose. And I think the perspective that we need to have in the Western world is that we're on like one of the greatest free rolls in history. And really, no matter what happens, we just can't lose because we weren't dealt one of these hands. That's like sort of the main perspective I'd like you guys to leave with. The second thing is, I get asked a lot about success in poker and like how you sort of succeed at something or how you make it to the top of an industry. I've been playing poker for 14 years. I really love what I do. I feel really, really lucky. I don't really feel like I work that much, even though I dedicate a ton of time to playing poker. I actually play a lot of poker. I think between when I was at your guys' age till when I was 24, I probably played like 60 hours of poker a week, or studying or talking about poker. I used to actually play so much poker that I would see cards in my sleep, see hands of poker in my sleep. So I really love what I do, but I'd like to talk a little bit about what money represents in poker. It's actually pretty interesting because probably a question you guys have for me is, what's the biggest hand of poker you played, or how much money have you won in a big pot? But this is like unique to the industry of poker. Like if I was a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, it wouldn't be like that interesting to be like, how much money do you make in a year? It's just not a question that is asked for people in a different profession. And this is uniquely true to poker, I believe, because it's our way of keeping score. So you measure your success in poker differently than you do in other sports. You measure it with dollars earned. In basketball, it's games won or pitches, in baseball or touchdowns in football or whatever it is, but we have money. When I first started playing, I was actually your guys' age, I was 16, and I remember thinking to myself that I really wanted to make a lot of money because it was our way of keeping score, but I also remember thinking, if we played for Goldfish, which was, I don't know if you guys have Goldfish still, I wanted to be the fattest kid on the block because I just really loved the game and I really wanted to be good at it. And so it made me realize that my motivation for playing was intrinsic. And if your motivation for something is intrinsic, you have higher levels of joy and higher performance results. Intrinsic meaning you just love the process, you love what you're actually doing, and you're motivated just by being good or enjoying the process of getting good at something. When you're motivated extrinsically by something, meaning like you're doing it to make money or you're getting compensated for what you're doing, your enjoyment goes down and your performance suffers. And I noticed at the times in my life that I've been motivated intrinsically by poker because I actually wanted to play, I wanted to get better, I wanted to learn, I wanted to perform, I wanted to compete against other people or be the best in the world. Great things happened. And so what I would love to see for you guys are at a really interesting time in your life where you're going to make decisions about what you're going to do, what you're going to study, where you're going to go to school, what you're going to be. There's all these people around you probably telling you all this shit that they want for your life, but I think two things really contributed to my success. One is that I found something that I was intrinsically motivated by, and number two is that my opinion of what I wanted for my life was always more important than the opinion of everyone else. And that's just the game. And the second thing is really, really hard to do because you have peer pressure from other people telling you what you have to be. You have peer pressure from everything you see on YouTube and social media and society telling you what you have to be. Then you have your parents and family and friends telling you what you have to be and your teachers telling you what you have to be. There's all these people that have what they want for your life or what they think that your life should be. But if we could get to a place where you have the confidence to trust that your inner voice, where like what you actually want is something that you could execute on, and you find something that you actually really enjoy, then you've won the game. And the money is a result of doing your job correctly. I make a lot of money playing poker, not because I actually want to make money to buy boats, but because I actually want to be the best in the world at what I do, and money is a way of keeping score, and it's a result of doing that. So it's the product of doing my job correctly. It's not the pursuit of my job in and of itself. And I guess the last thing for you guys are also at a unique spot, and I'm very, in a lot of ways, I'm envious of where you guys are at, because it's one of the first times that I actually am giving a talk where I actually feel really old. Like I'm double some of your guys' age. And I'm only 30, and I know feel 30, you guys are 30, it's like, holy shit, 30 is forever, but like, and this is so cliche, I feel old saying this, because like now I'm like preaching almost, but it's like everyone probably tells you, oh yeah, it'll be there before you know it, but it's like, fuck, like it really is. And I guess what I want you to understand is that there's other currencies that you guys have in your life that are different than money, and that's time and your health. And you guys are at a point in your life where you are in your primes of the other two things. You might not have a lot of money right now because you're 16, you're not supposed to, but you guys have more time than I'll ever have, and presumably that also means you have more health, because it's unlikely that at a young age you have complicated health problems that you might have when you're 60. So I would trade places with every single one of you, and that's absolutely no joke. I would give you all my money to be your guys' age and take your guys' health situations. I'd do it in a fucking nanosecond. And it just means that I want you guys to understand that if there's one thing you can take away, it's that like, you guys have the entire world in front of you. Like you guys could do anything. Like you guys could, money is a renewable resource. It's infinite, right? There's lots of money. There's abundance of money in the universe that you can make as you go old, as you increase the amount of time you spend in the world. I remember when I was 19, I was one of the biggest winners in poker that year. I made a ton of money playing online poker. I made $1.1 million playing online poker when I was 19, which is an insane amount of money to make, especially at a very young age. And when I was 20, I lost most of that money back. I didn't have the discipline to like understand what to do with it, and I wasn't really mature enough. And that happens. Like you can make money, you could lose money, but the thing that I never got back from those years is I never got the time back, and I never got the energy back of being young and just whatever. I mean, I'm still young, but so that's just one thing I would like you guys to just like have that perspective, is just like squeeze every second out of your life and do what you want with your life, because very soon you're going to be 30, and then you're going to be 70, and then it's going to be game over. And your opinion, if you could match your opinion of what you want for your life and value that higher than the opinions of everyone else, and find something that you actually love doing and just enjoy the ride, like you've won. And that's it. That's the game. That's it. That's all I got. Thank you. So I'd like to take questions from you guys. I'm sure you have questions. I'm happy to talk about anything, whether it's like strategic shit about poker or just like stories that you guys are curious about, or like anything you guys want. I'm totally happy to do Q&A. I'll stay here as long as you guys want. What's up? 1.1 million. Between 18 and 19. It was 2007. So that is, the website I play on tracks it by fiscal year, and I turned 19 in that year. Go ahead. Risking too much money in games where I wasn't as good as the competition. Yeah. The poker evolved very quickly, and one of the most important things about poker is not necessarily how good you are, but what you do with your money. And if you risk too much money in any given game, you could be the best player in the world, but if you're risking 50% of your money in one hand, you guys know from experience, you can easily lose that hand even if you have the best hand. And so I was fiscally irresponsible with my money, but I was also playing in games that were also tough. And so combination of two very, very bad things. Yeah, good question.
2000.
I know. I think I have this. I think everyone has the same set, right? I could definitely lose. That's part of the game. I'm not that serious at the poker. I mean, I guess maybe I'm a little serious sometimes. Yeah, I just try not to do anything other than just being stoic. You know, just having the same facial expression at all times. If you do one thing when you have a strong hand and one thing when you have a weak hand, you know, people are gonna know what you have. It's not as important what your poker face is, it's just important that you have one that's the same. But you can like move this around your knuckle. I will bet 10. I can't tell you why. It wouldn't be a good strategy.
Half?
I could tell you why at the end of the hand, but during the hand, I can't afford to do that. It's not in my DNA. I'm sorry.